Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 69 of 2020. I am your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at The Odds Breakers and follow us on social media /The Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by mybookie.ag. For a 200% sign-up bonus, please visit MyBookie. Use the promo code ODDS200. Terms, conditions, and locations apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs and sponsor the website and the podcast, we would love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $24.99 a month, you can get my plays and premium plays before the line moves. If nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. My friends, we are rolling through the week here. Lots of stuff is popping up. Injury reports, COVID reports, and games are being postponed. But we're going to keep trucking either way because we have some great plays for you today. We have a great guest, Mr. Raphael Esparza from DocSports.com, to break down some college football and some NFL. Cannot wait to get into that. First, I wanted to cover a couple games that have been postponed or canceled unfortunately. Arizona State at Colorado. You can't play to win the game now. You have Georgia Tech at Miami. We had the over. That was our free play on Monday, so that's a bummer. Hopefully we can make up for that for you guys. Louisiana Monroe versus Louisiana Tech was canceled. I'm sure everybody's pissed off about that one. Ole Miss versus Texas A&M was canceled. I'm sure everyone wanted to throw a ton of money on Texas A&M and the over. Charlotte versus Marshall is canceled. And I had the under in that one, so I'm a little pissed about that. Under 54.5. So Ole Miss and Texas A&M is postponed, just to let you know. And so same with Georgia Tech and Miami. But the other ones are canceled so far. We also have UAB versus UTEP. UTEP is postponed. UTEP was probably going to get destroyed anyway. Ohio versus Miami. Ohio, big rivalry game, canceled because of COVID. And that's it so far, but there's a few other games in danger. The Cal Bears is a little bit of danger. I think the Maryland Terrapins is in a lot of danger for being canceled. More stuff's going to pop up. But either way, there's so many college football games that no matter what, you're going to be able to watch some on Saturday. I'm just happy to have college football back and have these teams playing. I mean, it's just what we do. We love watching sports. We love betting on sports. And we certainly love making money. So I feel very happy that these games are being played. I wish that the season started a bit earlier so more games would be postponed instead of canceled. Hope a lot of people learn things from this whole situation. You know, the good thing is that nobody's really that sick in college football, including the faculty and the coaches. That's really good news. There's been news over the past week about the vaccines. Apparently, Pfizer found one that's 95% effective and safe. Apparently, Moderna found the same thing, 95% and safe. They're going to start increasing trials and give them to people with pre-existing conditions first. Now, if you're against vaccines or if you're for vaccines, I really don't care, because the people that are against vaccines don't believe the virus is big, and the people that are for vaccines believe the virus is big. But this is the thing that will save everybody. And if it shuts the media up about it and we can finally move on and just bring sports back to normal and the economy, of course, back to normal, then just do whatever the hell you have to do. You're not going to change anybody's mind on anything. Let's just get past this whole 2020 year. All right, my friends, before we get Raphael on, I'm going to give you a few free plays in college football. And we're going to start right away with Liberty versus NC State. NC State is a 3-point favorite. The total on this is 67. It's 3.5 in some books. It's kind of coming back a little bit. Some Liberty money's coming in. Liberty's now getting the respect they deserve. I mean, when we faded them and took the money line, they were 16-point dogs against Virginia Tech. But now, I hate to say it, Liberty, it's time to fade you as a short dog here. NC State's been an improving team, and after the Virginia Tech loss, they beat Pittsburgh, they beat Virginia. You've seen Virginia play lately. They're pretty good. And Duke. They also kept up with Miami quite well. All right. They did that and took them all the way to the end. Then they blow out Florida State last week, blow them out. Liberty's obviously a good group of 5 team, a really good one, right? And they've got a good offense. But their strength of schedule is extremely weak. I mean, minus Virginia Tech, I mean, can you even count Syracuse as an ACC team? They rank 136 on Sagarin. That's like into the FCS level. 136th strongest schedule. NC State's schedule ranks 33rd. A lot better. It's a huge difference there. I also have to throw the metrics out. This game, due to this discrepancy, I mean, you're going to see Liberty's got a better turnover margin, yards per play, all that stuff, but they haven't faced anybody tough at least like NC State has, right? So Virginia Tech 2 weeks ago, they should have won that game against Liberty. That stupid timeout that they didn't have create a penalty, trying to ice a 59-yard field goal. Why would you try to ice a 59-yard field goal? That's crazy. And when you had no timeouts, you got the penalty, and they get another shot. They missed the first try with the penalty. They get the penalty, and they hit it. Huge game, huge money line swing, obviously, for us. But there's a lot of film on Liberty now. And Dave Durin, he's not stupid. He's going to take advantage of this. NC State is really fighting for the integrity of the ACC here, right? I mean, Liberty beat 2 ACC teams. NC State's their saving grace here, and they're going to step up big to take out a ranked team. I can guarantee you that. I gave this out at 2, but I like it at 3. I don't love it at 3.5. I would guess buy it down to 3. And I think you're going to get some public money on Liberty too. Maybe wait this one out, but I'm going to take NC State -3. We're going to go for 2 stars, and after this game, ACC fans are going to say, next game, we are going to Illinois versus Nebraska. Nebraska is about a 15-point favorite. The total on this game is 59-ish. Nebraska laying 2 scores here blows my mind. I mean, when was the last time that has happened? I guess maybe they did play Rutgers last year or the year before. Maybe they did. But do they deserve this against the Fighting Lovies of Illinois? A couple things pertain to me in this game. First of all, Illinois is coming off of a nice win versus an improved Rutgers team that beat Michigan State, hung a little bit with Indiana. They're improved. All right. The Illini are better than we thought, I think. I think it's safe to say that. They're improved in my power ratings. The second thing here is Nebraska beat Penn State, but were massively outgained in yardage by over 200. They had some defensive scores there. Their new quarterback, Luke McCaffrey, only had 150 passing yards here. All right. That's it. This win was more about Penn State than Nebraska. Third, Illinois gets a bunch of guys back from COVID protocol, including their starting quarterback, Brandon Peters. They were without their starting quarterback the last few games. That's huge. Lastly, according to my power ratings, this spread should be more around 9 points, not over 14 points. I like this play a lot here. Nebraska's in a letdown spot. Take the Fighting Lovies to cover the 15 points and make sure you sprinkle that money line. All right, my friends. The next play we're going to give out is going to be with Raphael Esparza. Let's get him on to discuss a little college football, Week 12, and NFL Week 11. And now I'm very happy to welcome back an amazing handicapper who works on both sides of the window. You know him from his handicapping for mybookie.com and working for DocSports.com with his great plays. I'm very excited to bring back Mr. Raphael Esparza to the Odds Breakers. You can follow him on Twitter at VSI.Sports. Raphael, last time we talked was before the season, man. How have you been doing?
I've been doing well. I mean, football is football. You know how it is when you're a handicapper in football. You have a great week where you're the greatest of all time. Nothing beats you than sliced bread. And you have some weeks where you're trying to find a rock to hide under because the wife wants to know what happened to all the money she gave you. So it's a fun time. But, you know, that's sports gambling. I mean, people always think that you have to be 80% to be the god of all of football. But you know what? You live for live. It's a week after week an event. That's what sports gambling. But it's a fun week. We have a great college football, and I get to take a little break to talk to you. I was so excited when you emailed me to come back on the air. It gave me a little break because I was I've been trying to catch up on WWE wrestling because I just put up some odds for this weekend's pay-per-view, and I'm trying to do some head-to-head prop bets and matchups for wrestling. So thank you for the break of me watching wrestling.
No problem. We'd love to have you. And, you know, what you bring up wrestling here, I've always kind of wondered. I never got too involved in the WWE with handicapping. I hear some guys do it, but how does a scripted sport work where you can put odds on it and you know darn well somebody knows the outcome of this sport?
Well, I would say since when Brock Lesnar beat Undertaker for his perfect streak at WrestleMania, and that's when pretty much gambling turned when it came to wrestling. Now, I've heard from multiple sources and multiple emails. I've talked to a bunch of WWE writers, AEW and stuff like that, that most of these pay-per-views, these wrestlers do not know the outcome until either they're getting ready to walk out into the ring, or some matches, they don't know how they're going to lose or win until the ref tells them during their match in a pay-per-view event. So it's totally different now when you watch these WWE pay-per-view events. You see a lot of plus money winners. There is some big favorites because let's face it, the storylines will want to continue to the next pay-per-view or the next big pay-per-view. But a lot of these wrestlers don't know. And if you listen to the Undertaker story and how he lost to Brock Lesnar, it's fascinating where they fought, him and Vince McMahon fought, because Vince McMahon did not want Undertaker to lose that match. He wanted Brock Lesnar to beat him, and Vince McMahon did not want that to happen. So they were going back and forth. And he said that was the reason why that storyline blew up in the media. I mean, it was on ESPN, it was on CNN News. I mean, that the Undertaker beat him, his streak was over. Because let's face it, everyone thought he was going to easily win. He opened up as a minus 1,000 favorite, Undertaker over Brock Lesnar. I think he closed around, I'm not 100% sure, I think minus $5. Just because people were taking $25 bets all over the place with Brock Lesnar. But since that move, it's totally different now where these pay-per-view events, yeah, it's storyline when I'm watching Monday Night Raw and SmackDown on Fridays. They're all scripted, but pay-per-views, you can see the referee pretty much tell them, hey, time to wrap it up. Or when he thinks, hey, are you okay? He's probably telling them, okay, the next move, we're going to finalize it. It's nothing like back in the day when we used to watch it as kids.
Oh, so the referees fix it. Interesting. That's similar to the NBA, isn't it?
Pretty much.
So, yeah, man, that is so interesting to me. You know, a scripted sport, you can literally put odds on it because the wrestlers themselves don't even know until they're walking in or the official, the referee there tells them. That's fantastic stuff. So, under lock and key.
And we're not taking $10,000 bets on a WWE pay-per-view. I mean, some of them are WrestleManias and SummerSlams. I think our max bet may be like anywhere between $500. But normal pay-per-views, it's sometimes $200, $100. It all depends on who the player is. So it's not like we're taking football bets when it comes to WWE wagering.
Well, cool, man. You make props for Super Bowl, and I remember we discussed all that about, I think it was like August, end of August, early September when you were on. So I came up with a few props for you, Raphael, and I want to see your opinion on them. Feel free to destroy me if you need to. I'm a big boy. I can handle it, but
fire away. I mean, I tell people all the time, people tweet me out prop bets on Twitter or DM me on Instagram and all this stuff, and I'll put it out. I'll do the research and I'll tag them on it. Hey, here's your prop bet. It's under whatever NBA specials, football specials, whatever. If people have great ideas, feel free to tweet me out because I'm always looking for some shock and awe when it comes to sports betting.
All right. Make sure you guys tweet him at VSI.sports. So the first one I want to ask you about, it relates to COVID, of course, because that's going to be the new thing, coming into this year. Will you see either coach take his mask off or where his mouth is showing during the game? What do you think about that one?
Well, we've seen it before. That's why Gruden and the Raiders have been penalized heavily just because the time that they got penalized heavily, he was arguing for a holding call that was called on TV, and his mask was in his hand, and he was yelling at the ref. So we've seen that before. I mean, it's a great prop to have. I'm willing to put up another prop. What team is going to be penalized next heavily, because I think the Saints are going to be the next one probably in the next couple of days, and they're going to be penalized heavily for their dance in the locker room after they beat Tampa Bay, and not one player in the locker room had a mask on as they were dancing. So I would not be shocked if the Saints will be up there as the Raiders for heavily fined.
Well, for sure. And during the Super Bowl, do you really think a coach cares if he wants to yell at somebody and he wants that person to see his emotions on his face, his mouth while he's doing it? I think that's a decent prop to have in the Super Bowl. I would almost put the yes as the minus here. Maybe be like minus 140. Yes, that they do that.
Oh, well, just because we're talking about February and the way we're hearing now, if there's some kind of medicine or some kind of antidote or whatever they want to call it starts working and start testing it out sometime at the end of December as the front lines and elderly start taking, you figure the NFL players won't be taking it by February, but I think it'll be going downward as the cases will be going up. So I would not be shocked if maybe the mass situation might be a little bit lightened during one of the biggest games that everyone's watching.
All right. Well, if it's not, make sure we look into that one, Raphael. I thought hard about that, but no, it'd be better news if the vaccine was there and it was working, of course. So I'm okay with that. Next one I want to say is pertaining to the announcers. The number of times, I guess I should say, rather than how many, the number of times the announcers say COVID-19 or pandemic or coronavirus. And I threw out the number 5.5. I didn't think hard about it, but I would almost guess that would be a decent place to start. What are your thoughts on that prop?
And it's a low number because you would figure during a Super Bowl they would probably talk about all the difficulties it was to get here to the Super Bowl matchup during COVID. So I would think that's got to be over double digits. I mean, my number off the top of my head, just when you said 5.5, was probably anywhere between 12 to 14. I would probably put that number up there just because I have a feeling the announcers will probably beat it to death. And let's face it, even if there's no halftime performers, you figure they're going to probably mention 2 to 3 times that if there's no halftime performances because of COVID. So that's just a couple of times just with no halftime performance, which I'm hearing there may not be a halftime performance this year for the Super Bowl. So it's going to be very interesting. But I would probably say over, and I can guarantee you the bosses will have me working at least 20 to 30 COVID Super Bowl prop bets. So I can guarantee you that's going to happen.
Well, cool, man. Here's the contrarian side to that. Maybe they don't want to, maybe COVID is just so depressing by then, they just want to avoid the subject. Maybe the announcers are told to avoid it a little bit. Now, of course, they're going to have to mention it a few times. So I wonder if people would think on that angle too. I mean, people have COVID fatigue right now. I wonder. People try to go to sports to escape this stuff. So that's interesting, and that's why I threw that out as a potential prop for you guys. I have the small limits and see where it lands. Right.
I just thought of a great Super Bowl prop bet. Will there be a COVID-19 Pfizer commercial or one of these people who are working on the cure or something like that? Will there be a commercial during Super Bowl for COVID-19? I don't know. I'm going to think about that for the rest of the day after I do my wrestling stuff and entertainment stuff. Maybe I'll put a COVID Super Bowl prop up today.
Well, there you go, man. And that's great. We got you thinking here. Get some more action for people out there. That is fantastic. The last one I have is not pertaining to COVID. So it's the, and I think you might have had this, but tell me if you did. The number of penalties / calls on the field reversed by replay. Did you have that last year?
Yeah, we had that last year.
Okay.
And it was one of the most. It was a really popular prop bet last year, and I think this year we're probably going to do it for all the playoff games.
No, that's a cool one, and I think that's one that's going to continue for sure through all Super Bowls as long as replay is available. So that's cool. What was the number you said on that? Was it 2.5?
I want to say it was less than 3.5. So I want to say it was a 1.5 or 2.5. For some other reason, 1.5 comes to mind.
All right. Well, 1.5. That's pretty low, and I would go over on that one. I would probably go over if today, right now, without thinking too much about it. But to summarize, will a coach take his mask off to yell at someone, or for whatever reason? And number of times the announcers say COVID-19 pandemic or coronavirus. So I'm really excited to see some of your props, and you had a great idea there about having a Pfizer vaccine commercial. That's a cool one, man. If you go live, let me know on that one for sure.
I definitely will.
All right, well, let's get into a little bit of college football here. And before we get to the games itself, I wanted to ask you, who do you think is the most complete team in college football?
I mean, I would probably have to say Alabama. I mean, I think we're going to learn a lot from Ohio State this week. I can't believe I'm saying that because they're playing IU, but I would have to say it's still Alabama. I mean, it was Alabama last year. It's just LSU had a once-in-a-lifetime college football year. I mean, we're not going to see an LSU type of season like we saw last year. I think Alabama was still good last year. I think when Tua was just hurt all year long, it could have been a totally different outcome if he was healthy. But this year, I just don't see Alabama doing any miss-ups until maybe the championship game.
All right, no, that's fair, and their defense has improved a little bit, but when I saw Ole Miss score, was it 50-some against them, I think Alabama's got the best offense in the league. A couple teams might be sneaking up, like Florida and Ohio State, but complete, I would probably go to Clemson just because their defense can really step it up when the time's needed. Now, you didn't see that as much versus Notre Dame, but at least it went to overtime, and they're on a backup quarterback. I probably would say Clemson. I guess Ohio State, like you said, was my next because we're going to learn more about them as the season prolongs here. But I have to see more defense out of Florida and Alabama to call them complete. That doesn't mean they can't win in an offensive structured league, though, right? So,
I should have said Liberty if they beat NC State this week, or maybe the Chancelliers who are playing App State this week. They're going. They could be both 8-0. But why not give Liberty some love?
The Chanticleers, man. I tell you, Coastal Carolina's got a lot of momentum going, but Liberty and them have huge games this week, and I'm still waiting on some news on that Appalachian State Coastal Carolina game. But premium members, be ready for a potential play right there. Let's move right into then a little college football. And I wanted to start right out with Tennessee versus Auburn. Auburn's laying about 10.5 points. The total is 49.5. I'll let you get started. What is your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think the betting public's all going to be on Auburn on this game just because of how bad Tennessee has played recently. But Auburn has not. what happened to Auburn? I mean, they're not, or I should say, what happened to the SEC this year? When we talk about Arkansas as one of the top teams in the SEC, something's going wacko over there. But I think Auburn will be able to run the ball against Tennessee, who's given up a lot of yardage. I mean, I don't want to talk about how much they gave up against Alabama, but they gave up a lot to Arkansas, which they lost in that one. They're coming off 4 straight losses the Vols have. So I'm going to probably have to say Auburn. But do you really want to lay a big number with Auburn? And I know they're coming off a big win against the Tigers or LSU, but I mean, LSU is not the same LSU team. I want to say take the double-digit points with Auburn on this one. I'm probably just going to sit back and watch this, and hopefully it's a high-scoring game so I can laugh at all the SEC people who think the SEC is the greatest conference of all history. They've been playing defense like Big 12 this year. But I think Auburn has to be the play here. I think they won, 3 of their last 4, even though that one loss was against South Carolina, who just fired their head coach. So,
Muschamp, yeah. Auburn. Man, so they are coming off that win. Now they do get a bye week or 2 in there. I can't remember if it's 1 or 2 weeks due to a cancellation or postponement. But they're a little sandwiched here, Auburn, because they have Alabama on deck. Yes. So a Tennessee team that's been losing a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden Tennessee gets a nice fat bye week themselves, and Auburn might be thinking to Alabama, I'm starting to lean towards Tennessee here, and I think I like this side past the 10. Tennessee, they start out pretty good. South Carolina, we found out it's not that good. They kept up with Georgia the first half, and then they lost it. But they were a ranked team back then, and I don't know how they imploded. I know Jarrett Guarantano was banged up, and that helped, and that hurt a little bit. But Tennessee's a bad minus 1.1 net yards per play. I guess Auburn's a plus 0.5. The two things here is that Tennessee's had a harder schedule, in my opinion. I think they played a little bit harder, according to Sagarin, and that's important to me when I look. Auburn is really young in the trenches this year, and you saw Georgia kind of run all over them. The look-ahead spot is just huge for me because I look at the history. Now, of course, Auburn's covered these look-ahead spots, but they're against teams like Samford, hey,
what's wrong with Samford?
The Citadel. I mean, nothing's wrong to them in an FCS level, Raphael. But as far as facing an SEC team, this is a little bit different now for Auburn because now they have to face I guess, middle or lower of the road SEC team. But at least Tennessee's got a little bit better defense than some of these guys. My power rings have Auburn by 7.5, but it's not 10.5. And I just think that look ahead to Alabama might affect these kids. And I think this is a huge spot for Jeremy Pruitt. This is his get it right spot here. He's going to have his quarterback back playing for Tennessee. I think this is a very I think Tennessee could be a live dog here. I'm going to take them past the 10, couple units probably. So that's my opinion on that. Might sprinkle that a little bit, but I see what you're saying with Auburn. They have won some recent games in a row, but you look at those defenses that they faced; they're pretty bad, Raphael.
Well, yeah, I agree on everything. Like I said, it's all going to be if Auburn can run the ball. If they can't run the ball, then the upset alert is going to be all over Tennessee, and I would definitely look at taking the plus points. And I would say probably wait for this game. You might get a better number because I think the betting public is going to continue betting Auburn because they're going to look at what the past weekends that Auburn has played and what Tennessee has pretty much fallen apart. So I would not be shocked if you might be able to get maybe a half-point difference because I think Auburn money will probably come in.
Fair enough. Let's move on to Indiana versus Ohio State. Ohio State's laying about 20 points-ish. The total on this is around 66. This is an interesting game, though, of undefeated Big Ten teams. Indiana, man, every time they have like a sandwich spot, they cover. They're sandwiched against Rutgers. They covered. They were sandwiched last week, destroyed Michigan State. But what the funny thing about Ohio State, they tend to sniff out fake news. And maybe Indiana is fake news. And I'm not saying fake like they're not a good team, but there still could be that just massive gap that we see between the top 3 teams, top 4, and the rest of the world, right? You see Ohio State humble teams in this position. They've done it to Michigan. They've done it to Penn State. They've done it to a lot of teams. I remember Oklahoma one year they pummeled. It's just interesting when people jump on a public dog like that. And I don't know if Indiana's going to be a public dog, but I guess you would call this Ohio State's biggest challenge until the Big Ten championship, at least. It's pretty sad to say that because you have Penn State that's just completely dysfunctional at 0-4. You have Michigan at 1-3. It's amazing that Indiana's Ohio State's biggest challenge and Ohio State gets them at home this year. How perfect is that for them? But either way, I have Ohio State as my top team. I guess they're top 2 with Clemson, and Alabama's right there too for me. But as far as a power rating, I have Ohio State by 18.75 points, and I do my power ratings every Sunday, look at every box score. And so I can't take Ohio State, past the 20, past the 21, and maybe they do cover that, but I definitely can't take Indiana at 20 either. So I have no play. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on this.
Yeah, I wanted to play maybe the over in this one, but I heard the weather could be an issue, so I'll probably scratch that one. But I agree. I mean, my wallet's saying bet IU, but then I look at last year when they were 24.5-point underdogs, and Ohio State beat them 51-10. So then I'm like, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just sit back and watch this. But I agree. The sandwich spot has been on IU all young season, I guess. And all they've done is just cover games. That's all they have done is cover and win. I mean, you said they dominated Michigan State, hold Michigan State to the big goose egg last week. And let's face it, I mean, even if Indiana loses this game, they still have a tough schedule. They got Maryland coming to their backyard. Then they go to Wisconsin, the Camp Randall, in the first week of December. And then they close it off, of course, with their rivalry with Purdue. But I hate to say it, I love this story of IU. I wear my candy cane pants as last 2 Saturdays because my sister's an IU grad, and I have those basketball IU pants, and I've worn them because I've been excited to watch IU football. Because when was the last time you can say that? But right. I think they get booty wanked. I think Ohio State just says, you said it, maybe IU might be fake news, and maybe Ohio State flexes their muscles and wins like we saw last year. But the only difference is Rutgers put up 27 points on that defense. Penn State put up 25 points on that defense. So the defense does not look like the same Ohio State defense we've seen in the past with the Bosa's running around. I think IU will be able to score if the weather doesn't kind of mess up the game, and we might see a low-scoring game. But I think Ohio State wins this one. Now, covering, that's probably the million-dollar question, but I agree with you. I'm going to sit back and watch it. And why isn't game day there? Why isn't this game an afternoon or an evening game? Why is this the noon game? Give some IU respect, because when was the last time they've been in a big game like this? Come on, peeps.
Oh, I know. Huge game for Indiana. And I guess game day was already at Ohio State this year, right? Is that why? I'm not sure. Are they going to UCF this week? Is that where they're going?
I think they're going to UCF Cincinnati.
All right. Well, you know what? That's going to be a great game, too. And I might be more interested in watching this game than any of them. UCF is our next game to discuss, and they're a home dog of +6. The total on this game is 63 right now. I made the total 59, but it's so hard to bet against UCF on an under. And Cincinnati's been scoring. These two teams are really the best in the American Athletic Conference, with apologies to Tulsa, but they did beat UCF, but UCF outgained them. This is the best Bearcat squad that I've ever seen. And Luke Fickell, he deserves a lot of money and a Power 5 job coming in next year, in my opinion, hands down. In saying that, I shouldn't really not talk about Josh Heupel of UCF, because all he's done is continue what Scott Frost started there. This is his third year there, and they haven't taken much of a step back. He still has that fast-paced offense. They're still surprising teams. They find some recruits out there that are faster than people think. He's doing a great job. I have Cincinnati power rated higher. They're the better team. Their offense is probably almost as good as UCF's, but their defense is definitely better. But I don't know if they're 8 points better in my power ratings, being that this is around a 6-point spread. I think I have them more 4 points better. So if I'm making the line on this personally, I'm making it Cincinnati -2, not -6. I find it hard to bet against Cincinnati, being that they have such a huge against the spread margin. I think it's like plus 12 or something. I think I looked this morning. But I got to tell you, man, I'm getting closer and closer to betting UCF as a home dog. What's your thoughts on this one?
I couldn't agree with you more, but there's usually maybe a small handful of games that I just put a big X on and I just want to sit back and watch it because I know it's going to be that good of a game. This game right here is best game on a betting board, best game maybe on TV that you might not know about because it's not the SEC, it's not the Big Ten, Pac-12, whatever you want to say, the Power 5 teams. This game could be the best game on the betting board, and I totally agree with you. Is Cincinnati the better team on both sides of the ball? Yes, because I'm going to put that big edge on their defense. But they 5.5.6 point road favorites at UCF. I don't think so. I totally agree with you. I really thought this one was going to stay around what the number opened up, like around 3. It opened up around 3, not for long, but it did open up around 3. Total opened up around 62. And I can't bet an under when I watch UCF, because if I bet an under in UCF, I might just hold a gun to my head while I'm watching it. It's the same type of feeling of watching a night game. This one, like I said, probably won't have any action unless the number keeps on climbing. I know a couple shops have 6 right now, but if this moves to 6.5, and if the gambling gods really like me on Saturday and think I've done a good job and I've been a good boy, maybe they move it to 7, then maybe I'll jump on UCF. But yeah, I'm looking to watch this game with full acknowledgement, knowing that this is going to be probably one of the better games this week and maybe one of the better games all college football season.
Man, it really is. And I'm going to make sure I watch almost every minute of this one. God forbid it goes to 7 because I'm with you. It has to be a play for me. And the public used to be on UCF. Now they're on Cincinnati. So it's kind of interesting to me how the narrative changed so much after they've seen Cincinnati beat up a lot of teams. But, that Memphis was their best team, and the public's going to be like, well, Memphis beat UCF, and now and Cincinnati destroyed Memphis, so we have to bet Cincinnati. Yeah, that's kind of...
But the public is always right.
They're always right. That's right. Can't forget that, right? No, but that makes me like the UCF side even more for sure. But it's one of those that you should have an X on. But if that passed that key number, man, my power ratings already say to bet UCF. So we'll see what happens with this one. Let's move into a game I know a little bit more about, being a Badger alumni. Wisconsin versus Northwestern, 7.5. Northwestern, a home dog. I cannot believe they deserve to be a home dog at 7.5 after what they've done this year. The total on this is 45 points, man. I'll start out. Northwestern, very solid. And they've probably beaten my expectations for sure. I've moved them up in my power ratings. They were number 1 in returning production last year, according to Bill Connelly's ratings. They returned like over 92% of their whole team, and plus they got Ramsey as a transfer in as their quarterback. The question: Wisconsin blew out Michigan, right? But the question is how good is Michigan? You'd think that Michigan was better than the teams that Northwestern beat beforehand. But now I'm looking at Michigan's spread against Rutgers, and it's up to 10 in some books. It blew my mind a little bit looking at that yesterday. And I'm like, well, maybe – so Michigan's still really good because Rutgers, is improved. So it's like, what would Northwestern be favored at Rutgers? Would it be 10? Yeah, it's a good question because you're looking at these two situations. Well, Wisconsin got a little respect. I believe it closed at 6.5 against Michigan, and now it's 7.5. Northwestern got that respect to go past the 7. But, it's real interesting to me, this spread. And I think the bookmakers are, wondering what kind of Wisconsin you'll see. Is Graham Mertz going to be the truth or not? Is Northwestern's defense what they've shown already against Purdue, against Iowa? They blew out Maryland, and that game against Maryland is aging very well, isn't it? Because you're seeing Maryland score a ton of points. So I'm not going to lie to you. My power numbers exactly have this as Wisconsin minus 7.5. So it's so on the line right now. I can't touch it. If it was a minus 6.5, then I would probably bet Wisconsin. I'd have to. But I would not touch the Northwestern side either, because Wisconsin seems to have some upside there with a quarterback. Now it's not everybody can just stack the box and stop that awesome run game and jet sweep that they have. when they beat Michigan last week, they were on a skeleton crew on defense. They didn't have Henderson and Garrett Rand and Wild Goose and a couple other key guys there on defense, and they still destroyed them. So really interesting game. Some sharp people I know are taking Northwestern, but I'm not touching it right now. The total is now actually down to 43.5, and I'm going to lean over on that one. What's your thought?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting in this matchup. And I forgot that you're a Wisconsin alumni because I do 3 shows in Wisconsin. So I always have to be very cautious that go Badger, go Badger, go Badger, because I want to be invited back. So, but this game is so interesting just because of recent history. I mean, last time Wisconsin went to Northwestern beat them handily, 31-17, and Wisconsin couldn't run the ball at all. And you said it, that game against Maryland, their first game, my birthday weekend, 43-3. Every time Maryland scores a touchdown, that just improves that Northwestern win on them. And let's face it, if Northwestern wins this game, I'm not saying they're going to win, so don't say, oh, you said Northwestern and Wisconsin blows them out and I look like a big doofus. But they play Michigan State next. That's probably a W at Michigan State. Then they're at Minnesota. Minnesota's at the same time. They can go undefeated because they close out the season with Illinois. So it'd be crazy to see Northwestern maybe at the season perfect in the Big Ten. But I agree with you. I think it's just a little bit too many points. If I had to pull the trigger, I might take Northwestern because of their defense. Their defense has been really, really good. But I just don't have that much data on Wisconsin because of COVID issues. They have not played that many games. For me to see, is this quarterback a stud, or this quarterback just had a couple good games and maybe his light is going to be shut off a little bit with Northwestern's defense? I think if this number continues to climb, which I don't think so, I don't think we're going to see 8 or anything higher than 7. So I would not be shocked if this thing goes to 7 and they just move the juice around before a kickoff. I would say maybe Northwestern, but here's another one. I can't wait to watch it because this is going to be a fantastic game, and I'm a fan of both, so I might have to put both my Northwestern and Wisconsin hats on at the same time and just for a good game.
You know, it's funny. I used to go to Northwestern games back when I lived in the Chicagoland area. And, before, of course, Wisconsin, I went to school in Wisconsin. That trumps everything. But I was more of when I was a kid, I was more of a football fan in general in college. I always had the Bears. But, what shows your college team is where you went to school for your undergrad. But, man, don't worry about hating on the Badgers. I have guys from ESPN on that are massive SEC pundits, and they probably hate the Badgers more than you can even think of. So don't worry about not being invited back by me, man. I like it when people take contrarian moves against the Badgers, and it's true. They do have some deficiencies, especially at wide receiver. Now that they have a quarterback, they have really small wide receivers that are not 4 or 5 star guys. So that's one of their issues. They do have a great tight end in Ferguson, but they have some issues there. So this totals, it looks like a little bit of rain. It got way too low for me.
I agree. I was looking to play this game over if there was no weather issues.
Yeah, especially at the 43.5. And if that thing clears up, I might be making a small play on that over. I just think that this could be one of those both teams get in the 20s. It also could be that Wisconsin's putting up 40 points against the last couple teams. Maybe they are for real there on the offensive side. So yeah, that total's too low for me. The narrative is the under with Wisconsin's defense and Northwestern's defense, but a little low from my taste. Well, any quick games you want to throw out there?
No, I think there are some good games. San Diego State plays Nevada at 2:30. They switched this game to CBS, not CBS Sports. It's the first time Nevada is going to be on a primetime channel, I think, in 30 years. So I'm actually, even though I always root against UNLV football because I think UNLV football should be kicked out of football because they stink. They should give more money to the golf and swim team and just get rid of the football program. But I'm excited to watch that game, San Diego State, Nevada. Too bad it's the same time as Cincinnati and UCF, so I guess my DVR is going to be working a little bit overtime on Saturday afternoon.
We're going to be locked and loaded on Saturday, my man. Well, let's get into a little NFL then, and have a couple games to discuss. We're going to start right here with Cincinnati versus the Washington football team. They took this off the board. I think there's some COVID concerns. Is that right, Raphael?
Yes. Washington has some COVID concerns.
Right. And it might pop back on because it could be just contract tracing that they're doing that for. I think it's -1. Washington total on this is 46.5. So for me, I'll quickly go over it. Washington was an under team. I think until very recently. Alex Smith's now their quarterback, and I actually trust him more than the other quarterbacks they had with Haskins and Kyle Allen. But I also trust him to throw some interceptions because he's aggressive. The Bengals, they're coming off a terrible performance against the Steelers. And I think that's what kept this total a little bit lower, but it's the Steelers. I mean, they're 0 for 13 in third down percentage last week. 0 for 13. That was stuck out like a sore thumb in the box score. I could not believe that. But Joe Burrow has weapons. He's got T. Higgins. He's got Taj Boyd. Tyler Boyd. He's got AJ Green. Green's not being used nearly as much, but Giovanni Bernard's been great as a running back, but they might even get Mixon back this game too. The thing about the Bengals is their defense is very bad. They allow 28 points per game and almost 400 yards, but Washington, their offense is bad, but I think it's slightly improving. They've been scoring over 20 points the last 3 games or so. Their defense is listed as pretty good on paper, but they're giving up 24 points per game, and their strength of schedule was easier. Being Washington, their strength of schedule is very easy in that in that division. The Bengals give up 27. Both teams are top 11 in plays per game. I think this one goes over. So I'm gonna take a small play on the over for a couple stars here. Over 46.5. I think because it's at Washington, they do score. I think it's at home. Bengals defense, they score. Joe Burrow does Joe Burrow things, and it could be a coin flip at the end. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like the total. I think you nailed it. We could see a lot of points. And this is a game, if you like running backs and rushing, you don't watch this game because neither of these teams can run the ball. Neither of these teams want to run the ball. I mean, I always tell people Joe Burrow might be the first quarterback to get Tommy John surgery. That's how many times he's throwing the ball in the NFL. I think it's going to be a very entertaining game. And I agree. I like watching Alex Smith. I think he's the better quarterback than the ones you mentioned, especially Kyle Ireland and Haskins. But I get so stressful watching it because we all know the story of Alex and how he got here and with all that. It's like me watching Tua get tackled, and all I'm doing is just praying for him to get back up and not limping. It's a very nervous time when I watch Miami games and Washington games. But I agree. I think Washington's defense, I thought started off really good, but they've been fizzling out. I don't know if they're just gassed out because a lot of 3-and-outs sometimes. And in the second half, they give up a lot of points. But, yeah, I think I was leaning towards the over myself in this game just because Washington's at home. Their defense has given up, 53 points in 2 games. And most of it has been second-half points because I just think their defense is gassed. I think Burrow will be able to pick his spots in the second half and put some points on the board. Same thing with Washington. I think they're going to be able to score on that Bengals defense that's given up a lot of points. So I think the over has to be the play on this game if you're looking to bet this game.
All right, fantastic. Glad we have agreement on that one because you don't think of Washington like that. They can get to the quarterback, but Joe Burrow's that kind of guy that expects the defensive end. He feels pressure really well, and he also can take off running on his feet. So that's kind of where my thoughts are on Washington's awesome pass rush with Chase Young down there. Well, let's move on to a huge game. The Kansas City Chiefs versus the Las Vegas Raiders. It was at -7. It got all the way down to -5.5 for the Chiefs as a road favorite, and then now it's back to 7. So money came back on the Chiefs here. I'll let you start this one. Total's 57.
It's a redemption game. Let's face it. The Chiefs probably have had this game circled since they lost, knowing all what the Raiders did, driving around the stadium after the game to pretty much gloat. Kansas City's defense still gives up a lot of points. I still can't believe the Panthers were able to score 31 against them, but they're coming off a bye week, so now they're well rested. They've got to listen to all their stuff saying, the Raiders are a much different team than we all expected. Last time they played each other, they beat Kansas City. This could be an ugly bloodbath. I have a feeling. I would not be shocked if the Seahawks, Kansas City puts up a big number like they did against Denver on the road when they scored 43 against them. I want to say take Kansas City, but I can't lay a touchdown. I mean, so far the Raiders have made me eat crow all season long because I didn't think they were going to be this good. I said the best thing that happened to the Raiders was the Golden Knights losing in the Stanley Cup, and now maybe it may be a Raider town and not a Golden Knight town. But the Raiders, they've won 4 out of 5. Like I said, they beat the Chiefs. They went to Cleveland and won, that's not a tough task, even though I think weather had a lot to do with that victory. But they beat the Chargers. I'm really, really impressed on this Vegas team. I've been eating crow on them, but I just think redemption. We've heard it all week, and Kansas City's well rested coming up a bye week. I want to say take the road team, but again, that 7 just screams at me, and my wallet just closes up like me dating in high school. Has no chance of me scoring.
Well, I'm glad that you said that because I've taken a lot of flack for this from some of my colleagues, and I liked Las Vegas at +7, and there's so much narrative to this. Andy Reid off the bye, he's really great off the bye. Well, that's true. I don't disagree with that at all. They have road revenge on their mind. They were disrespectful, but are they really 9 points better than the Raiders on a neutral field? I guess if you say they get 2 points, maybe you can say 8 points. I don't know. I don't think so. I think the Raiders are 6-3, and they're 6-3 for a reason. And they tend to show up at home. You saw them beat the Saints at home when the Saints were big road favorites as well. I like Gruden. I think Gruden's a motivated guy. He eats, drinks, and sleeps football. Kansas City can turn it on against any team, and they're the best team, and that's why they're probably going to win the Super Bowl again this year. I think that they're definitely the favorites, and I agree with that. But their only weakness is against the run. They're 4th worst against the run, allowing 138 yards per game, and you wonder why that is, because Kansas City is supposed to be that team that's leading people, and they're supposed to be throwing the ball, trying to catch up. But if the Raiders jump them and they can get Josh Jacobs, then they might be able to control this game a little bit. And if you look on the other side of the coin, the Chiefs' defense isn't that great. The Raiders have Ruggs now, and he's back from injury the last few games. He's stretching out the field. Same with Aguilar. I can see backdoors happening. I can see KC up by 13, and they get backdoored by a touchdown because the Raiders can score. They're an offensive oriented team. I ran it through a little algorithm I have, and I have the Chiefs winning 30-25. So I mean that's right around the total. But it's not past the 7, I'll tell you that. And my power ratings have them a 4-point victory, and I guess I'll add the point for revenge. You get up to 5 there, maybe give them a little bit more read off the bye, but 7 was too much for me. So I did make a play on the Raiders +7. I'm being very contrarian here because the whole narrative is Andy Reid off the bye and revenge. So I'm going to go on a limb, and I could be wrong here, but we'll see what happens there, Raphael.
Yes, it's going to be huge. Jacobs and Booker, because Booker had a great game against Denver. I think he almost rushed for 80 yards. If both of them can run the ball on Kansas City, I think you're right. I can see Kansas City up maybe double digits, and then all of a sudden Vegas puts in a late touchdown in the 4th, and now you hang around 6, and all they do is stop the clock and run the ball, because the Raiders don't have any timeouts left, and they win by 6. I could totally see that aspect, but it's all going to be if they can run the ball with Jacobs and Booker.
What's really interesting too is that the Raiders have already played all their tough games, Saints, Tampa Bay, and all that stuff. Kansas City hasn't, and if the Raiders win this, they're +600 to win the division, which is a pretty big price. +250 to win this game, of course, at 7 points, but +600. They win this game. Even though they still have their 3 losses, they play teams like the Jets. They get the Dolphins at home. They get the Chargers now at home. They get to go to Denver, but we've seen what Denver is. They're undefeated in this division if they win this. So just want to throw that out there, that +600 if you want to get really cute. So I thought that was really interesting to check out. Next game, the Atlanta Falcons are facing a Drew Brees-less New Orleans Saints. Spread is about 4.5. I wrote down 5 yesterday. Total on this is 51. This is interesting to me without Drew Brees because the Saints were hitting their groove, blowing out Tampa Bay on the road. They got revenge from 49ers at home here. Then Brees got hurt and Winston goes in. And it looked okay with Winston, but I could still see some problems there. Maybe they fix that now. Atlanta's down well themselves, though. They won 3 of their last 4 games, and if Todd Gurley goes down, it doesn't go in the end zone. They win the 4 in a row, right? So that's Atlanta right now, and they're pretty hot. They're coming off a bye. I downgrade the Saints 3 points from Breeze to Jameis Winston, and maybe I'm still concerned about him throwing all those picks like you saw last year and him really understanding the offense. But I'm also thinking about how Teddy Bridgewater came in and was an against the spread darling last year for the Saints. You know, for some reason, Sean Payton's good with backup quarterbacks from what I see. So there's two conflicts right there here, right? My power rings have the Saints by 6, even with the downgrade. It would have been past 7 for sure if Breeze was in. But I think you might have to give the Falcons a little credit coming off the bye. And you saw what the Falcons did midseason last year. I think they ripped off like 6 wins in a row or something like that. I think the 5-point spread is right, but want to see your thoughts.
Yeah, it is right. But you said, I mean, what would have been point spread becoming if they won 4 straight? They won that game against the Lions, coming in 4 straight, coming up a bye week, and being breezeless. It'd be totally. I think it might be maybe a half point or a full point different if the Falcons were coming in on a 4-game winning streak and playing some of their better ball. But you figure last year when we saw Bridgewater carrying it was all Kamara in a running attack. I mean, Bridgewater really didn't win. It was their defense, and they were able to run the ball. And I think that's what they're going to rely on defense, which is playing much better lately on the last 2 games of Saints, because their Saints defense in the first half of the schedule was awful, giving up tons of points and tons of big plays down the field. They're going to need Alvin Kamara huge. You think they relied on him when Thomas was out? They're going to have to rely on him huge now with Jameis back there. And why can't Kamara get some love for the MVP? He's 50-1 to win the MVP. I mean, I know it's a quarterback award, but if it wasn't for Alvin Kamara, there's no way the Saints are this good in their records. Not that this, because he saved them during Thomas was out. He saved them last week. He's got to be better than 50-1 to MVP. But I agree. I think for me, if the number goes higher, I might take a look at Atlanta. But I think I'm just going to sit back and watch this, because I think we're going to know how the Saints are going to play without Drew Brees this game, just because it's a division game and they're at home.
Great points about Kamara, man. He's the lifeblood of that team. I can't even see them winning this game if he goes down in the first half. You know, that's how big he's been for this team. If you're Atlanta, why don't you just, I mean, if you can't guard him with one guy, put someone on top of him, you know? I mean, have a safety creep up on him, because I trust that a lot more than Jameis Winston whipping the ball downfield, you know? That's how you play this team. I mean, you got to stop Kamara, and you have a shot to win, in my opinion. And you wonder if the fact they're coachless there, you know, with Morris, you know, being an assistant there, now taking the reins, you wonder if he's smart enough to know that. You know, maybe a live bet here wouldn't be too bad here if you see how Kamara's doing the first quarter. You know, so
he wins this game at the other Mercedes-Benz stadium. That if there was a Chick-fil-A in New Orleans, it would be open probably on a Sundays, not in Atlanta. But if he wins this game, he might be the permanent head coach in Atlanta.
Yeah, absolutely. Yards per play, the Saints blow away the Falcons. I think the Falcons are pretty bad as far as that. But either way. I have to favor the Falcons as a dog here. I didn't play it either, but let's watch it for a little bit. Let's see what happens. I'm really curious. If this hits the 6 range, then I'll definitely be more interested. Let's move on to the final game. Green Bay versus the Colts. 2.5 points to the Colts, but I think Green Bay got hit on a sharp side today, and it moved it down a little bit. And it's so funny. People wait till it hits 3, and then the sharper side hits it at 2.5. Isn't that how it always is?
I remember those days behind the counter over at Aria and MGM. They just lurk. I mean, that whale money and 6-figure money just. They're hiding in the cracks, and as soon as they see a number move there, all of a sudden you're like, where'd you come from? And their money's all over the counter.
And the thing just moves after that, just moves. It's gone. Something you've been waiting on, and then you're like slapping yourself, and you're like, do I take it anyway? And I don't want to pass. It's all those internal conflicts that sports bettors deal with. The ones that kind of hold their ground and have their number in their mind, if it's not there, usually are the winners. But either way, this is going to be a great game. 51 points is the total here. I saw an interesting trend on this on Killer Sports. Going back to December 2018, when a team averages less than 1.25 turnovers per game and they're playing the Packers. I don't know why this is. And the Packers are dogs. The Packers are 13-0 straight up and 13-0 ATS. That was a really weird one. I've seen some crazy trends, but when a team averages less than 1.25 turnovers, the Packers are 13-0. I can't explain that, man. But it's really interesting. I guess the Packers play well against teams that don't turn the ball over. That's interesting. I don't know if I could even use that. It might be one of those outliers, but just thought I'd throw that out, give it a little love to Killer Sports. The one thing that I will say is that Packers are a little Jekyll and Hyde this year. They go into New Orleans and they win comfortably with Drew Brees and everybody there. Then they go to Tampa and just get absolutely blown out. Like Tampa looked like they won the Super Bowl or something. They were Super Bowl like guaranteed. It made you forget about Kansas City a little bit watching that game. The points per game favors the Packers at 31 to the Colts 27, but the yards per play favors the Colts. Colts are a net 0.8 and the Packers are a net 0.3. I mean, netted that out. I mean, you have a 0.5 yard per play discrepancy there for the Colts. And it's just because the Colts defense is so big. But according to Jeff Sagarin, and I look at Sagarin, the Packers have the harder schedule. They rank 19th in the league. By the Colts, their schedule, dead last, 32nd in the league. So you got to factor that in. I have a strong lean to the Packers here, but now that it got hit, man, probably something I don't want to play. I had the Packers circled as a teaser possibility, so I'm going to need a 1.5 or 2 back here. What is your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I was looking at the Packers on this one, but then I went back, and their last 2 road wins were against a beat-up San Francisco and a Houston team that's just plain awful. And you said it. Their last road game was against Tampa, a true road game, and Tampa just waxed them. So I don't know if they play different. I mean, they played against their team against Jacksonville when they only won by 4 points, even though it was a book saver because everyone had that as a teaser, moneyline parlay. That thing was probably one of the most teaser bet all of last week, so that saved them. But if Indy can do what Minnesota did, run the ball and keep Aaron Rodgers on the side of the field watching, then I think it's going to be a very interesting game. But if they can't, and Green Bay for some odd reason can stop the run, then I'm with you. Then I think Aaron Rodgers is the play here because who are you going to trust, Aaron Rodgers or the guy in the Indianapolis Colts that hasn't even been there, 6 months yet, in Rivers? I would take Aaron Rodgers over Rivers any day of the week, but I agree with you. The sharp money hit it, and I have a feeling it's going to be hit again. So I think that number that me and you were probably hoping for, it's all going to be that big word of hope, and we're not going to see it.
Yeah, well, there you go. One thing you made a point of is the running game. The Colts aren't running the ball well at all for some reason, and they're throwing the ball really well to Nyheim Hines, but Jonathan Taylor hasn't looked that great yet. And the Colts have been just throwing it too much. When they lost to Baltimore, I think Phillip Rivers threw it like 45 times or something. It's like, what are you doing? I mean, Baltimore's weakness is really against the run there. Dropping Rivers back against a pass storming defense like Baltimore. I thought it was stupid coaching on Frank Reich's side, but at the same time,
I think the Colts only had 23, 22 rushing attempts in that game against Baltimore. I totally agree with you on that. They did not rush the ball, and I think Rivers threw, for, I want to say 45 times. It was the number I don't have in front of me. But yeah, I remember watching that ball, and I'm like, run the ball. What are you doing?
Exactly. Frank Reich had a bad game, but then he bounced back and had a good one against Tennessee there. So I guess that was the important one, is winning against Tennessee. But, let's see what they'll do with the Packers. The Packers are certainly not looking ahead to the Bears after what we saw with the Bears. So
we want to go there.
No, let's just forget about that, man. We're out of time. But is there anything you want to throw out there? Any games you want for our listeners?
No, I have a full schedule of college and NFL plays this week. I'm probably going to have. I'm a really selective person when it comes to plays that I release over at Doc Sports. So I'll probably have about 3 college football, maybe 2 NFL. I don't release a lot of plays just because I see where the money's coming in at time. So a lot of times that's a bad thing about being an odds maker. Sometimes you see all the money coming in and it messes you up with your head as a handicapper. So that's why I'm very hard and selective and stuff. But it's a great weekend because you have UFC 255 this weekend. You have some boxing on the board. You have MLS soccer playoffs starting this weekend as well. College basketball. I can't believe it's 7 days away. Wow. We see some college hoops, so that's going on. And of course, they have some wrestling betting this weekend. You got the horses. You got Del Mar running this weekend. So for me, it's always a full day of 365 days of action and trying to find stuff to put for people to bet on.
Yeah, it always is, man. And for guys like you, work extremely hard in this business. You are busy every single day. Even like you said, during COVID, you were busy capping horses and everything else that you can, man. We really appreciate that. And, having your knowledge on this podcast, we are very much indebted to you for that as well. So thanks so much. Make sure you guys check out Raphael at DocSports.com. All right, let's get into one more NFL free play that we have. Remember, we have the Cincinnati over with the Washington football team. We have the Raiders at +7, and I'm going with the Baltimore versus the Tennessee Titans. The +6, the total on this is 48.5. This should be one of the better Sunday football games, in my opinion. Baltimore has a cluster of injuries on defense and troubles as well. Their big man, Brandon Williams, might not be able to play in the middle, okay? Their 3 technique, their nose guard, right? Their nose tackle. That's going to really affect them. I mean, they gave up 177 yards on the ground to the Patriots last week in a bad rainstorm. Didn't matter. The weather looks promising for this game, which they're facing Derrick Henry. Right. This is a revenge game for Baltimore because of what happened in the playoffs last year, as we all know. But at the same time, the Titans know how to play this defense. They know how to score points against them, right? You're going to see a little bit of play action. You're going to see a lot of A.J. Brown getting some good passes and some good catches against the banged-up cornerbacks of the Baltimore Ravens here. I'm seeing some points from them, but at the same time, the Baltimore's going to score a lot more than 12 points like they did in the playoffs last year. Very embarrassing, losing in the playoffs. They had this game circled, so this is what is keeping me away from Tennessee. I think a revenge spot in the playoffs is a little bit more important than anything else during the regular season. Plus, they need to bounce back from that Patriots game. This is a huge bounce back spot for John Harbaugh, and the Titans defense is just really bad. They give up 26 points per game on average, and that's a pretty easy schedule that they're doing that with as well. So even the Bears came back against the Titans, so take that from what you will. But either way, I'm seeing a lot of points on both ends. I'm taking the over 48.5 for 1.5 stars premium shared play.
How much you want to make a bet I can throw a football over the mountains?
Next on our list, we have our refuse to lose 6-point teaser, which is 6-4 so far this season. No thanks to the Baltimore Ravens last week because we were 6-3 and they lost outright to the Patriots. I'm going to tease the Vikings down to -1 against the Cowboys. The Vikings are playing way better. Their young guys on defense are stepping up big time. Jefferson is proving to be a great receiver over there. Thielen's catching some balls. Delvin Cook, come on, do I have to say anything more about Delvin Cook? I mean, if Kirk Cousins was any better, this could be a Super Bowl contending team. But right now, the Vikings are hot, so I'm going to take the hot hand, and I'm also going to tease the Packers up to +8. The Packers' weakness is against the run, but the Colts have not run the ball well, and for some reason, they don't like to run it a lot. They give it to Phillip Rivers to throw the ball, and I disagree with that. But either way, the Packers should be able to keep it close with the Colts here. The Colts have the easiest schedule, ranking 32nd in the nation. So I think that the Packers could win this game outright, but we're going to tease them update to be sure past the 3, 4, the 6, and the 7. The Vikings, man, I'm close to taking that play. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to make this teaser a little bit bigger. Normally it's 2 stars. We're going to do a 2.5 star premium shared play. Now we're going to go to the bow to the gambling gods for fun parlay. It's 2-6 this year. Obviously we're getting a little bit more than, I think we got 2 to 1 twice. So it's not like we're down a lot here. I like a nice mix this week. We're gonna take another shot here. We're not doing parlays just to make a 1-to-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-1 thing. We're gonna take a nice little shot, and we're gonna do a nice little mixed. I like Army -4. I think they're the better option team here. We're actually gonna take the spread there, -4 at -110, and we're gonna take Rice versus North Texas over 63 at -110, and Wisconsin versus Northwestern over 43.5 at -110. Okay. Now, I just think that it's just that under got steamed way too low. Wisconsin's been scoring over 40 points themselves the last few games. I expect Northwestern to score at least 2 touchdowns here. Wisconsin could get into the 30s. I think that got way too low there. And we're going to add a couple money line plays. Iowa State money line -384 against Kansas State, and Troy money line -453 against Middle Tennessee State. Middle Tennessee State is terrible. We're going to go to the NFL. We're going to take 2 more money lines. Minnesota Vikings, like I said before, -320, and the Los Angeles Chargers against the Jets -433. This baby pays 16.5 to 1. So if we hit this one, it should almost take care of the whole year for parlays.
I'm sorry that people are so jealous of me, but I can't help it that I'm popular.
And now it is time for
The Sharp Side of the Force.
The Sharp Side of the Force is brought to you by uwager.eu. For a 50% sign-up bonus, please visit uwager. Use the promo code ODDSBREAKERS. Terms, conditions, and locations apply. Going to start off with Sharp College as of Wednesday afternoon. Sharp money on Purdue, -2.5 to -3 at Minnesota. 57% of the tickets on Purdue, 84% of the money. Sharp money at SMU, -3, hosting Houston. 41% of the tickets on SMU and 80% of the money, but I think this game was just canceled, unfortunately. Sharp money on LSU, -1 to -2.5 at Arkansas. 51% of the tickets on LSU, 71% of the money. I disagree with that one. Sharp money on Maryland, -5.5 to -6.5, hosting Michigan State. 61% of the tickets on Maryland and 82% of the money. Another game that might not play. Sharp money on Cincinnati, -3 to -6 at Central Florida. Huge. I think 73% of the money is on Cincinnati. 73% of the tickets and 95% of the money. Sharp money on Oregon State, +5.5 down to +3.5, hosting Cal. 54% of the tickets are on Oregon State, 81% of the money. Sharp money on Georgia State, -2.5 to -3.5, past the key number 3 at South Alabama. 47% of the tickets on Georgia State, 99% of the money. Heard South Alabama's quarterback might not play this week. Sharp money on Navy, -2.5 to -3 at South Florida. 16% of the tickets are on Navy and 90% of the money. Sharp money on Oklahoma State, +9.5 to +7 at Oklahoma. 46% of the tickets are on Oklahoma State and 63% of the money. Sharp money on Boise State, -13 to -14.5 at Hawaii. Dual action, 71% of the tickets on Boise, 90% of the money. Sharp totals, Purdue versus Minnesota, over 59 to 62.5. 62% of the tickets on the over, 85% of the money. Sharp money on Appalachian State versus Coastal Carolina, over 48.5. 40% of the tickets are on the over and 90% of the money. Sharp money on Indiana versus Ohio State, over 62 to 66. 60% of the tickets are on the over, 90% of the money. Sharp money on UTSA versus Southern Miss, under 56.5 down to 51.5. Big move. 40% of the tickets are on the under, 69% of the money. Sharp money on Cal versus Oregon State, under 52 to 48.5. 44% of the tickets are on the under, 81% of the money. Sharp money on Virginia Tech versus Pittsburgh, under 56.5 to 54.5. 44% of the tickets are on the under, 97% of the money. Sharp money on Kansas State versus Iowa State, under 50.5 to 46.5. Another big move. 34% of the tickets are on the under, 86% of the money. A lot of weather that game. Sharp money on San Jose State versus Fresno State, over 55 all the way to 60. 35% of the tickets are on the over and 74% of the money. NFL as of Wednesday afternoon. Sharp money on the Patriots, +3 all the way to -1 at the Texans. 66% of the money on the Patriots and 91% of the money. Sharp money on the Dolphins, -3 to -3.5 at the Broncos. 60% of the tickets on the Dolphins, 92% of the money. Sharp money on the Buccaneers hosting the Rams, -3.5. 53% of the tickets on the Bucks and 78% of the money. Sharp totals. Falcons versus Saints under 51. 40% of the tickets on the under. 65% of the money's on the under. Bengals versus Washington over 45 to 46.5. 60% of the tickets on the over. 97% of the money. You know, it's part of my money. Sharp money in the Jets versus Chargers under 47.5. 52% of the tickets are on the under and 92% of the money. They wonder if the Jets are going to score. Sharp money on the Titans versus the Ravens over 48.5 to 49. 52% of the tickets are on the over. 87% of the money. My friends, thank you so much for listening to the Odds Breakers podcast. If you have any games you'd like us to break down, please feel free to tweet us at the Odds Breakers. If you have any questions, make sure you tune in to our show, Better Odds Sports Betting with Kyle Hunter this weekend. Have a great weekend watching football. Enjoy the games and go get some winners.